Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, Sunday, December 29th. Ian Cameron solo on this Sunday edition of the show, ready to break down the Sunday NHL card. It is a really big card for a Sunday. We've got 9 games taking place today in the NHL. Looking forward to talking about those in just a moment. First things first, we'll look back on Saturday. And another thing I want to say, shout out and thanks to Terry Edelman joining me on the show the last 2 days. Did a great job. Had some banger picks, some great props yesterday. It was a heck of a day with the player props. It was a heck of a day for the bargain bin as well. So it was great to see that. Terry did a great job. Definitely try to get him on at least a few more times throughout the course of the rest of the season and in the new year as well. But let's quickly get through Saturday because we're on a super time crunch. We try to get the Sunday show done by the top of the hour before the NFL action starts. So we're going to go rapid fire through this recap. It was a solid day overall, a winning day. It didn't start well with the Montreal-Florida game because we were on the system play, and obviously it stayed way under the total first period and full game. And how about Jakub Dobiš in his NHL debut with 32 saves and shutting out the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions? No big deal. 4-0 win for the Montreal Canadiens there. Very, very impressive stuff. And, they wanted to give Dobiš this chance to be the new backup behind Montembeault. They had clearly run out of patience with Caden Primo, who's not had a very good season for the Montreal Canadiens. They put him on waivers, give Dobiš this chance. He played very well in that win over the Florida Panthers yesterday. So a nice 4-0 win there for Montreal. That's now back-to-back shutout losses for the Florida Panthers, which happened to them just recently, of course, when they lost to Calgary and Vancouver, shut out in both of those games. They would then bounce back and erupt for 6 goals against the Edmonton Oilers, and the system play for that game was as easy as it gets. So something tells me the system play is going to be very strong for the Florida Panthers tomorrow night when they host the New York Rangers, who, of course, are giving up goals in bunches right now. That's going to be, I think, maybe a best bet contender on the show tomorrow in some fashion, that first period full game over with the Rangers and the Panthers tomorrow night. But that's tomorrow. The bottom line is, like I said, Florida now back-to-back shutout losses. How about the comeback from the Seattle Kraken? Incredible. They were left for dead. I counted it as, hey, I've lost this bet with Seattle. And even the team total, I said, they're not going to score 2 goals late like this. And once they got down 4-1 with, 5 minutes left in the third period. Unbelievable. 4-2, 4-3, 4-4. 3 goals in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the third period. Multiple goals with the extra attacker for the Seattle Kraken. And then Vince Dunn puts it away in overtime. A stunning comeback win for the Seattle Kraken, 5-4 in overtime there. A game that I thought they had a solid chance. It didn't look like it for 2.5 periods, but a game that without Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes in the lineup for the Vancouver Canucks, I certainly viewed that as a game that if the Seattle Kraken are going to try to turn their season around and get back on track, they certainly had to, find a way to get 2 points there against Vancouver, and they were able to do that. So back from the dead comes the Seattle money line and the team total for me in that game. Full game over cashes as well. So it ended up being a 3-1 game for me there with Seattle, 5-4. By the way, regarding Montreal, Florida, Terry Edelman used Noah Cates as we transition to Philly Anaheim, their 3-1 win over the Ducks. Noah Cates was Terry's best bet. His backup best bet. He didn't use it as not his backup best bet, his backup bargain bin. His bargain bin that he went with was Noah Cates, and he scores for Philadelphia. Great call there, and that's something to monitor. Noah Cates' consecutive game goal scoring streak continues. The other guy that he was thinking of using for bargain bin special was Jake Evans, and Jake Evans scored for Montreal against Florida. So you talk about really doing a good job and finding bargain bin candidates. My goodness. Both of them that the candidates he considered ended up cashing, and that's now consecutive games for Jake Evans of Montreal with a goal. So keep an eye on these two players. They both scored yesterday, and Cates gets a goal to help Philly to a 3-1 win against Anaheim. A much-needed better effort from Ersson as well in between the pipes for the Philadelphia Flyers. And again, we will see if he can sustain that moving forward. I thought for sure that if you were to tell me, boy, wouldn't it be nice to see Oilers Kings in the playoffs for what, a third straight year, fourth straight year, whatever it is? I'd be like, you know what? No, I'm not interested. I'm sick of seeing it. But if you give me a 7-game series like the game we saw yesterday between the Oilers Kings, I may change my tune and say, you know what? Give me Oilers Kings again in the playoffs. Why not? Because that was a hell of a hockey game yesterday with the Oilers and the Kings. And my bargain bin comes through in this game with Warren Foegele scoring against his old team. Plus 380 was the price with that. Great price. I also mentioned Arvidsson. Maybe he'll score for Edmonton against LA, and he did. So that was a good prop game. The Kings win in overtime. Quentin Byfield had a terrific game. 2 goals and an assist, including the game winner in overtime. And the Kings end up getting a 4-3 victory there over the Edmonton Oilers. Very good hockey game. Like I said, I can't believe I'm saying it, but maybe after all, I'm excited about maybe another Oilers-Kings playoff series, because that was a very entertaining hockey game between them yesterday afternoon. All right, the rest of the games were at night. I took a shot with Ottawa. It started out well. They were up 2-0, but that's as far as it went for them. 4 unanswered goals for the Jets. Eventually, they broke down the dam. Basically, the floodgates opened against Mad Sogard for Winnipeg, and they ended up getting the 4-2 win. I gave Ottawa a chance at a nice price there to show me what they can do with the goaltending situation, obviously being in shambles, saying, hey, you know what, they're still playing good team defense, but their goaltending really does, and you saw it last night, it really does drop off when you go from Linus Ullmark, and even Anton Forsberg is better than, and I'm not a big Forsberg fan, but he's even better than the 2 guys they got there right now, and Mad Sogard, and the guy that's probably going to start tonight against Minnesota for Ottawa, Levi Marilainen. So, it's just really, really tough right now with their goaltending situation the Ottawa Senators have. It's going to be tough for them. They're going to really have to protect their goalies and keep the shots low, keep the danger chances down. Easier said than done. But Ottawa's going to have to do everything in their power. If they're going to win games in the short term, they have to do everything in their power, to slow down, the offense by not letting their goalies face a shit ton of shots. And that's going to have to be their modus operandi right now if they're going to win games. So they lose 4-2 to Winnipeg. Carolina ends up with a nice bounce-back performance against New Jersey. They lost in Jersey Friday. They bounced back, win 5-2 last night against the Devils in that game. Battle of backups it was as well. Jake Allen got the start for the Devils. Tokarski for the Hurricanes, and Dustin Tokarski gets the better of it. Washington 5-2 win against Toronto. Unfortunately, Matt Murray of old struck in that game. A couple of those goals in the first period, you really like to see your goalie make that save. Was not able to do that. But nevertheless, Washington had, certainly caught Toronto on a back-to-back. More opportunistic. I thought Logan Thompson was very good again for the Capitals. They're going to have a tough call once the games become more important. And if they make we think we can assume Washington's going to make the playoffs now. Spencer Carberry's going to have to eventually settle on either Logan Thompson or Charlie Lindgren as his goalie. And it's not an easy choice right now. Both of these guys, are trying to put their best foot forward and show their coach that they want to be the guy come playoff time. Another debacle for the Rangers, 6-2 against for Tampa Bay. We swept the board with that game. We had Tampa Bay team total over 3.5 at plus money, if you can believe it, which was a great price. And of course, the system play was in effect here. So the system play that didn't go our way with Montreal, Florida, did go our way here with the Rangers and Lightning. First period soars over the total, and the full game does the same as well, also going over the total. So great result there for me. Clean sweep with the Rangers Lightning game, 6-2 Tampa win. Boston in regulation, we took a piece of that. They get a very solid bounce back effort after a terrible game in Columbus. They blank the Blue Jackets 4-0, so the Jackets are going to be in the system play in their next game. Very solid effort from Boston in bounce back mode. The Islanders 6-3 win against Pittsburgh. We talked about how I leaned Pittsburgh at the price, but I didn't pull the trigger because of the fact that The Islanders were off that 7-1 shellacking at the hands of Buffalo. Patrick Waugh kind of spoke out about his team needing to pick up their bootstraps a little bit, and they did that last night. 6-3 victory over Pittsburgh. First period over, full game over, both cash. Full game over was my best bet on the show, so great to see that cash in here in this Penguins and Islanders game. And, you see the Islanders are about as healthy as they've been all season, defense and especially up front. Duclair gets on the board for the first time since returning from injury. Pajot, I talked about it, probably has value with his goal props right now, playing on the top line for the New York Islanders. Nelson chips in. Anders Lee, they definitely are showing signs of, now that they've got their full forward group together, that they could be a better offensive team than they often show themselves to be. So that's something to watch for moving forward. But a nice 6-3 win for the Islanders there against the Penguins. And those same two teams are doing battle head-to-head once again today in Pittsburgh, the back end of a home-and-home series. 3-1 Calgary against San Jose. We took a shot with San Jose. We also were on the over, but didn't get there with it, unfortunately. Good effort by the Calgary Flames, 33-22. There's no beefs here. They deserve to win. They outplayed San Jose. They were the better team. Dustin Wolf was very solid in net. Askarov was pretty good too, but unfortunately not enough production from San Jose. Their only goal was a Macklin Celebrini power play goal for them. Jonathan Huberdeau is really on a roll right now. 2 more goals for him for Calgary last night, so he continues to play really good hockey. All right, let's get into Sunday. We've got about 40 minutes to get through 9 games, so we'll keep a brisk pace. Terry's not on today. Look, if this wasn't such a time-constraint show today where we've got such a crammed period of time, Terry would have been on. I would have invited him on, absolutely, again. But unfortunately, today, we've got time constraints. Tomorrow, we have time constraints. We have 1 hour to get through the whole card, so it's going to be tricky. But Terry was great. Terry will be on again. No doubt about that, in fill-in situations. There's no doubt. And by the way, Alex is back on Tuesday. He'll be back for the New Year's Eve bonanza edition of the Ice Guys show on Tuesday. But let's get into Sunday. We've got Buffalo and St. Louis. We've got St. Louis minus 120, home favorites. The total in this one, 5.5 across the board in this game. I'm not stepping in front of the Buffalo momentum right now. But I also, you know how I feel about St. Louis. It's not like I'm lining up to bet against the Blues either. But the momentum and the positive vibes are real for Buffalo. Like, you lose 13 in a row, you go through the abyss, you go through the dark times, and then you come out of it. You win that first game against the Islanders, and you do it in decisive blowout fashion, 7-1. And then you follow it up and you beat the hell out of Chicago 6-2. I mean, 13-3 Buffalo the last 2 games in their victories against the Blackhawks and the Islanders. That being said, won't be as easy today. I think St. Louis, I certainly rate them a little bit ahead of this of those Chicago and New York Islander teams right now. The Blues have bounced back from a mini little 3-game losing streak, and they had lost 4 of their last 5. But as I noted, when I took them against Detroit early in the week, you lost to Dallas, you lost to Jersey, Tampa, and Florida. I mean, you lost to nothing but great teams. No shame in any of those losses. And here's St. Louis now with 2 consecutive wins against Detroit and Nashville, 4-0 against the Wings, a 7-4 victory against Nashville, their first game coming out of the break. Both of these teams are scoring. Buffalo's been trending over. Series history, believe it or not, between these two teams. How about 9-1 to the over? That's right. 9-1 to the over for the Sabres and the Blues. So I like over 5.5. I thought 5.5 was very cheap with what we're seeing right now with Buffalo offensively, with what we're seeing with St. Louis, who, look, went through some struggles putting the puck in the net during the losing streak. They only scored 1 goal in the losses to the Panthers, the Lightning, and the Devils, and the Stars for that matter. But, below average defensive team, even though the Buffalo's bounced back and won 2 in a row, they're still a below-average defensive team. I think St. Louis scores goals. I like the way the Sabres are playing offensively right now. So definitely at 5.5, I like this over the total here with the Blues and the Sabres. And 9-1. And one thing we saw yesterday, relying on the series history to make your totals bets comes through for you. We had a very strong over series history with Seattle and Vancouver. That game went over the total. We had a very strong over series history with the Islanders and the Penguins. That game went over the total. And in this one, we have a similar strong series history with Sabres and Blues going over the total. So, yeah, over 5.5 for me. You can turn it into a bifecta if you want, but I'm just going to stick with the full game over, put it all on the full game over in this one just because it's been so strong with that. And then as far as props go, and by the way, Buffalo won 4-3 in overtime at home against the Blues last month. The draw, I think, is worth a look. I know Alex sent me his card. He likes the draw in this game. Maybe a little small shot on that as well. That and the over for me in this game. As far as player props, Holloway, of course, it's a St. Louis game. We got to bet Dylan Holloway, and he's starting to heat up again for the St. Louis Blues. Zach Bolduc, someone to keep an eye on too. You know, he's been someone that's been a little more noticeable offensively since Jim Montgomery's been there. You know, for Buffalo, you can go in a bunch of different directions because if you look in the 2 games since they broke the 13-game losing streak, you got to ask yourself who hasn't been someone that's produced offensively. Dylan Cousins is starting to get his game going again. Benson, you know, has been able to find the scoreboard with goals in consecutive games. So I really like Benson. You know, Peterka's starting to wake up from his slumber. Peterka. Jason Zucker's gotten on the board. Alex Tuck obviously had the hat trick against Chicago. Jack Quinn with goals in back-to-back games. So there's a lot of good player props in this game. There's no question. Quinn, Cousins, Benson, those are all right at the top of my list as far as Buffalo props in this game with the way they produced here these 2 games since Buffalo got out of their funk. So those are all worthy looks as far as props go for this one. All right, we move along. That's an afternoon game, by the way, 3 p.m. Eastern. So is this next one. Edmonton, Anaheim. We've got the Oilers minus 280, upwards of minus 300 at some spots here. Big-time road favorites here against the Ducks. The total sitting at 6.5, shaded to the over in this game. You know, you look at this matchup, and Edmonton's coming off the overtime loss to L.A. Yesterday. Anaheim also played at basically the same time, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. local, and they ended up losing 3-1 to the Philadelphia Flyers. This is another one where we're going to rely on series history. 8-2 to the over, and the 8 games that went over the total, 7-3, 6-1, 4-3, 6-2, 5-3, 6-1. All of them, all 8 of the last 10 meetings that went over the total have had at least 7 goals. We know we're probably going to see John Gibson after it was Lukáš Dostal last night for the Anaheim Ducks. So I would expect that we're going to end up seeing Gibson here on the back-to-back against the Edmonton Oilers. I personally think he's the weaker of the 2 right now, although that's not a given. I'm seeing John Gibson ill yesterday. So do they put Dostal in a back-to-back? We'll have to see. That's the question. They have called up Calle Clang, by the way, from the minors, from the San Diego team, the Gulls. And if he has to play, if they don't want to start Dostal again and they have to play Clang because Gibson's still under the weather, Klang's got a 3.1 goals against average, 896 save percentage down there in the American Hockey League, which isn't exactly great numbers by any stretch of the imagination. So, again, this is another series history thing where it's 8-2 to the over. All 8 games that went over the total have seen 7 or more. So, for me, over 6.5, you're minus 130 with the Oilers and the Ducks. As far as props go in this game, I mean, Edmonton team total is a little pricey for me. Minus 170 is not the price I want to lay. With that, player props here in this game, you know, you look at it. I still think Victor Arvidsson is a streaky player. He finally scored yesterday. Maybe look toward him again. Henrique as well against his old team. How can you not? Adam Henrique loves punishing his old teams. New Jersey, Anaheim. Wouldn't shock me to see him find the back of the net here for the Edmonton Oilers today against his old team as well. So Henrique and Arvidsson are probably 2 of my favorite prop looks on the Edmonton side of the equation. If you're going to look at Anaheim, it's a little trickier sledding there because they're not always a team that you can trust to put the puck in the net. But Fabry, Carlson, Vetrano, Terry, usually the guys you're going to want to look at here if you're going to take Anaheim Ducks player props. All right, next up, we've got Washington and Detroit. We've got the Capitals minus 140 road favorites, and the total here sitting at 6, shaded to the under. We've got rest advantage here for Detroit. They played Friday against Toronto. They were off yesterday. Washington comes in from Toronto with the 5-2 win against the Toronto Maple Leafs last night. So a little bit of a rest advantage here for the Red Wings going into this one. They finally get a full, day of practice and video session time with their new head coach, Todd McLellan, which they did not have before they played Toronto on Friday night. He basically just, well, here you go, Stevie Yzerman with the press conference. And here all of a sudden is Todd McLellan coming out there and coaching. So, I look at this as a spot here where, I think Detroit will be better this afternoon than they were against Toronto. It's kind of a negative spot for Washington, but, it's a work in progress. Todd McLellan said it right off the hop. This is not going to be an overnight fix. This is not going to be, I'm coming in here and we're going to get on a run right away. He was very, very adamant about that. And there's not a lot of confidence right now. And it is a bit of a fragile team, a fragile group right now for the Detroit Red Wings. But I feel there's a good spot. Washington's coming in on a back-to-back and a good win against Toronto. Detroit's rested, waiting there for them. And look, Detroit's actually won 3 of the last 5 meetings, 3 of the last 6, I should say, versus the Washington Capitals. 2 of the last 3 here at Little Caesars Arena here in Detroit. This is the first meeting this season between these two teams. I'm going to sprinkle on Detroit here. Again, I'm concerned that it's basically a loud and clear signal being sent from Todd McLellan that, hey, don't expect miracles right away. It's going to take some time. But I do think this is a good setup for Detroit. They've had the full day to work with McLellan yesterday, finally a full-on work day following the first game under McLellan with Toronto. That ought to help. It can't hurt, can only help. Washington's coming in late off the Toronto game last night, back-to-back for them. It's a good enough spot and a good enough price to take Detroit here, even though, look, I know they've got issues. They're not playing well. But plus 120, I'm going to take a shot here. Alex Lyon in net for Detroit, by the way. That is confirmed. Talbot got the start against Toronto. It was okay, but not great. Lyon has obviously had his struggles, of course, throughout the season as well. 2.99 goals against, .894 save percentage. But he will get the start. We expect Charlie Lindgren here for Washington with this being on the back-to-back. But, like I said, I think Detroit here plus 120. This is a spot that's worth taking them, even with their issues. We know Washington's the better team. And, Washington, if they play well, they're obviously very capable of winning. But, like I said, this spot for Detroit sets up nicely for them. And when you look at Washington, I think another thing that kind of attracted me to maybe going with Detroit here is Washington's got, some bigger games coming up. Boston, Minnesota, Rangers coming up than this. So, like I said, we'll take a small shot here with Detroit. Certainly not going to be the best bet on the show, but I'm going to grab a little bit here with Detroit at this price. It's weird with Detroit because McLellan's preaching defense. Do they have it in them is the question, because this is a team that has given up 4 goals or more in 5 straight games. So he's trying to work on the defensive side of the puck with them. The question is, are they going to be able, to make improvements there? We'll see tonight and moving forward. All right, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay rather, minus 250 home favorites, 6.5 the total in this game. What a performance yesterday it was by Jakub Dobiš, the young goalie who got the call from Laval of the American Hockey League, gets the start yesterday against the Florida Panthers. He was really good. You got to give him credit. He was very solid in net. He actually made a couple of really tough saves. You could tell the confidence in him. The longer that game stayed, with Florida off the scoreboard, he was getting more and more confident. A great 4-0 victory there for Montreal. Sam Montembeault, they saved him for tonight. He'll be in net for the Canadians in this game. Jonas Johansson is the current projection here for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which doesn't surprise me because it was Vasilevsky last night against the New York Rangers in their 6-2 win. We'll see if Jonas Johansson gets the start here. Jonas Johansson, for the longest time, not exactly a goalie we trust, but he has now put together not 1, not 2, but 3 very solid starts in a row. All of them Tampa Bay victories. 3-2 win against Nashville, 5-1 win against Seattle, a 36-save shutout against the Florida Panthers earlier in earlier this week, or last week, I should say. It was the second game of the back-to-back against the Panthers. So he's definitely played very well. There's no question about that. You look at Montreal, they played a solid defensive game, but let's also not lose sight of the fact that they've also had their struggles. This is another over series history type of deal with these two teams, where it's been over Palooza with the Canadiens and the Lightning, head-to-head, a lot of overs, a lot of high-scoring games, a lot of first-period overs, too, head-to-head between these two teams. So it's over by Fecta. Montreal team total, I'm going to sprinkle on that. I'm actually going to sprinkle on Montreal here, plus 200. I don't like this spot for Tampa. Tampa's off the big Ranger win. Tampa's on a back-to-back. Tampa's got a road trip out west coming up in the new year following this game tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. So I don't like backing teams all the time on the final game of a homestand, especially when you're about to, start a very long road trip. The price is not bad. Montreal, you look at them. Montreal's also shown this recent ability of kind of punching up and not doing so bad, in these kind of spots. So a little sprinkle on Montreal plus 200, a little sprinkle on Montreal team total over 2.5, which is a pretty good price. And also the primary bet, though, is the over by Fecta here with the Canadiens and with the Lightning here, first period and full game as far as that goes. All right, Islanders and Penguins as we continue to roll along here on this Sunday slate. This is a rematch, too. These teams played each other last night. Now they're playing each other in Pittsburgh this time after being in Long Island last night. Islanders minus 125 road favorites. The total in this one sitting at 6, shaded to the over. Obviously, it was all Islanders last night. They played pretty well in that game. 6-3 victory over the Penguins. Penguins looking for a little redemption, a little payback. That's now 4 straight wins, though, for the New York Islanders head-to-head over the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll see if that continues here in this game today. But I'll tell you what, Pittsburgh does have a 10-7-2 home record, certainly better than they've been on the road. They've been good off losses lately. If you look at this Penguins team, 4-2 loss to the Rangers, beat Toronto 5-2 in the next game. They lose 6-2 to Colorado. They beat Montreal 9-2 in the next game. They lose 3-2 to Ottawa. They beat the Kings 3-2 in the next game. 3-0 loss to New Jersey. They beat Philadelphia 7-3 after that. So this has been a team that's been very good off a loss of late. Even with the series history strongly favoring the Islanders, I'm kind of leaning Pittsburgh here in a bounce-back spot at home, plus 105. It looks like Nedeljkovic should get the start on the back-to-back. And I don't mind taking Pittsburgh as a home dog when, the Islanders are going to likely turn to Marcus Hogberg here, or Hogberg, I should say, in this game tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's not exactly a goalie I'm trusting right now. And, of course, Varlamov's on the IR. I'm not totally sold on Patrick Waugh going back to Ilya Sorokin tonight. Now, maybe he does go back to Sorokin on a back-to-back, but I think there's a pretty good chance that we see Hogberg tonight here for the Islanders. Not enough sample size to make me really all that confident in him. And if you look at his numbers in the past with Ottawa, 3 seasons, and those were a long time ago. Okay, this guy is now 30 years old. He is the typical journeyman goaltender. He hasn't played consistently in the NHL since 2020. 2018 with Ottawa, he had a 4 goals against average, .884 save percentage. His goals against average has been above 3 every year in his NHL career, those 3 years with Ottawa. And his save percentage has been no higher than .904, and it's been below .900 a couple of times. So if it's Hogberg in net, I'll probably move toward Pittsburgh here. And I'm going to go back to the over by Fecta, just like I had with these two teams last night. You can't argue with it. You get the Islanders versus the Penguins, and you get 6-3, 4-3, 5-4, 5-4, 4-3, 4-2, 5-4, 5-1 hockey. 7-2-1 to the over in the last 10 meetings between these two teams. That's why I was on the over last night. It's just a series history that it's just goals when it's these two teams head-to-head. So back to the well with the over by Fecta. Pittsburgh I will add to the card if Hogberg's in net. That's what we're doing here with this one. Duclair for a goal prop. Siplikov, J.G. Pajot again, because he's got that top-line value playing with Barzal. I like all those props that are, I think, most of them cashed last night. I think there's a decent chance they all come through tonight, or at least multiple. Drew O'Connor, I think, has some value on the second line for Pittsburgh. Raquel, Crosby, and Rust have been outstanding. It's clearly the line that carries them night in and night out. So if you want to go to those three players for Pittsburgh for props, I can't argue with that. All right, those were all afternoon games. The remaining 4 games on the slate, they are night games, starting with Ottawa and Minnesota. We've got Minnesota minus 150, home favorites in this game. The total here sitting at, and by the way, I forgot to mention this, Montreal, Tampa, Jake Evans, you got to bet him to score. He's on this crazy consecutive game goal scoring streak right now for Montreal. Terry mentioned it yesterday. When you find this, it's like treasure at the bottom of the sea. When you get these players that are depth players, that are all of a sudden going on this little bit of an offensive heater. And I'm telling you what, there is no adjustment in the numbers usually. But yeah, it's now 4 straight games with a goal for Jake Evans. So, like I said, great value for him for Montreal to find the back of the net tonight. All right, Ottawa, Minnesota. Minnesota minus 150, home favorites, 6 the total here in this game tonight. I hate to be repetitive here, but as long as we're not getting Allmark or Forsberg, I mean, 6 goals last night, and Ottawa gives up 4. They had become an under team. They had become a really good team, defensive team during the road trip and the winning streak. And a lot of that, though, was Linus Allmark. And while they are still preaching, playing really good team defense, you just don't have the goaltending you once had. It's probably going to be a Levi Merrilainen here tonight for the Ottawa Senators. He started 2 games already, 6 goals allowed in those 2 games versus the Canucks and the Oilers. Actually, the Edmonton game, he came into relief up for an injured Linus Allmark. That was the game Allmark got injured. Merrilainen finished the game for Ottawa against Edmonton, gave up 2 goals. They lost that game 3-1. In his one start, which was at Vancouver, he gave up 4 goals to the Canucks in that game. So we'll see how this one plays out, but I expect Merrilainen in net here on the back-to-back for Ottawa. Philip Gustafsson is going to be in net here for the Minnesota Wild, who are coming off a 3-2 comeback win against Dallas in overtime. Kind of shocking to see that, considering how poorly they played for most of that game and basically stole it in the third with just a great comeback win there in that game. I agree with Landon. Brock Faber at that price is worth a look. He scored in consecutive games for the Minnesota Wild. And why not? Because other than Rossi, Boldy, and by the way, I should point out, Eriksson Ek is back for the Minnesota Wild. Huge presence on this team, both ends of the ice, especially defensively. He can score goals too, but his defensive, obviously, abilities make him just invaluable right here for this Minnesota Wild team. This is a pass for me. I mean, you can't bet every game. I don't have a strong opinion here. I'm kind of laying low on betting Ottawa for now until I see how these goalies play. I don't trust them. They're also on a back-to-back. They've been on the road for a long time, although the Christmas break did break up, the road trip in half a little bit for Ottawa. But, I just don't love what I'm seeing enough from the goaltending right now to be able to say, yeah, I really do trust them here. So, and I don't want to lay minus 150 with Minnesota. Alex, I believe, likes the draw. I could make a case for that. I think it still could be a competitive game. But again, are you going to get the goaltending here from the Ottawa Senators? That's going to end up being the question mark here and the big question overall. So, like I said, I think when you look at this game here between the Sens and the Wild, a lot of moving parts, lean draw. I know Alex does like the draw because he sent me his card earlier. But that would be about it for me here with this game between the Senators and the Wild. You look at player props. Like I said, I think Faber's probably the most value prop on the board for Minnesota right now. Josh Norris, I think I've talked about Pinto. Pinto didn't score last night, but another thing to keep an eye on too is Ridley Gregg. Ridley Gregg on the 4th line scored last night for them. He's on the 3rd line, I should say, right now for the Senators. He's scored 2 goals now in 4 games. Keep an eye on him. He's worked really hard. He's getting chances. So maybe a little value with Ridley Gregg for Ottawa here if you're looking at a goal prop, which at a pretty nice price for someone that's really, starting to produce and chip in a little bit, playing on that 3rd line for the Sens. All right, Calgary and Vegas. We've got Vegas minus 220, home favorites. The total in this one, 6.5, shaded to the under here in this game. Vegas, obviously, with a solid win against the San Jose Sharks coming out of the Christmas break the other night. It was a very good performance overall from Vegas, and basically an onslaught on Alexander Georgiev late in that game. Ilya Samsonov will get the start here for the Vegas Golden Knights, giving Aiden Hill a little bit of a rest here. Samsonov has, actually his last 3 starts have been better. He kind of had a tough end of the month of November. He had that game where he gave up the 6 goals when Utah went into Vegas and beat him 6-0. But since then, he's given up 4 goals in his last 3 starts combined against Anaheim, Minnesota, and Seattle. So certainly a lot better from Ilya Samsonov. Those last 3 starts, we'll see if he can keep things rolling here tonight against the Calgary Flames. Calgary in a very tough spot, obviously. They're in San Jose last night, flying down to Vegas tonight, back-to-back situation. We saw Dustin Wolf last night, so probably Dan Vladar getting the nod here in this game for the Calgary Flames. This is probably if I bet something here, and I haven't bet it yet, but just waiting for goalie confirmations. But you look at head-to-head, Vegas the last time they hosted Calgary here, it was a 5-0 shutout win for the Golden Knights. I could see them getting to at least 4 or 5 here. Again, Calgary defensively on the road, albeit last night they did play better. For some reason, I don't think San Jose had much going for them last night. Gas in their whether it's gas in the tank, whatever you want to call it, just didn't feel like there was a lot of oomph necessarily from the San Jose Sharks in their game last night. They looked like they were plodding, along quite a bit. Vegas certainly with the rest advantage. We know how strong they've been at home all year. The 3.5 team total for Vegas is at a reasonable price, -124. I think I can get there with that. Over 3.5 with the Vegas team total is probably going to make my card when it's all said and done. Got to take Huberdeau, even though I like Vegas in this spot. Huberdeau with 2 goals last night, 4 goals in the last 3 games. He has scored a goal in all but 2 of his last 8 games for the Flames. So he's been feeling it, no question about it, for the Calgary Flames. I'd be definitely interested to look in that direction as far as props for the Flames tonight toward John Huberdeau. Olofsson's got great value playing with Eichel and Stone. We'll see if he can make good on it, but they've put him up there on the top line, trying to rediscover that Eichel-Olofsson connection that existed in Buffalo years ago. So like I said, I think when you look at that, Olofsson's got good value. Kolasar's moved up to the second line with Karlsson and Hertl. Not exactly known as a goal scorer, but you're certainly going to see him in a top 6 role with opportunity, and he scored 2 of the last 3 games. So that tells you maybe Bruce Cassidy knows what he's doing here, because Kolasar on the second line right now, and he scored in 2 of the last 3 games. So Keegan Kolasar right now might actually be a solid value prop on the Vegas side, given what we've seen from him here these last few games. All right, this next game is your Sunday night national TV game. Yes, a ESPN Sunday night NHL hockey game. Dallas and Chicago. We've got the Dallas Stars -260, I should say, home road favorites. -260 road favorites for the Dallas Stars in the Windy City. The total 6 shaded to the under. Look, Dallas, we've talked about how some of these home losses are concerning for them. Lose to the Leafs, lose to the Rangers, lose to Minnesota when you have a 2-0 lead. You blow it. You lose in overtime 3-2. Those are not good signs for the Stars. But now they're on the road, and believe it or not, the road is actually where they've played a little bit better. Recently, I know their overall road record is still only 7-8, but a lot of their better road games have been lately. Chicago's now lost 3 in a row, so the Anders Sorensen coaching bump has taken a bit of a speed bump, if you will, the last few games. So it's probably a nice bounce-back spot here for the Stars, but where's the value is the question. That being said, the last time Dallas was here in Chicago, they did lose 6-2 to the Blackhawks back on November 27th. But this is a game that you would expect focus from the get-go, a Dallas team that I think, can't be happy with, giving up the 2-0 lead in the third period to a Minnesota team that, clearly Dallas was dominating them for the majority of that game. And the next thing you know, bang, bang, 2 quick goals, the game's tied, and it kind of, threw Dallas for a loop when that happened. So you would expect Dallas to want to bounce back here. The question is, what do you do, right? There's very little value. I think maybe Dallas first period puck line -0.5 plus 132. It's not a bad way to go in this game. That's a good point by Landon. Chicago, and even to a lesser extent, St. Louis, against Buffalo. These two teams are playing each other in the Winter Classic on New Year's Eve. Is there a look-ahead factor, for both of these teams, Chicago and St. Louis today? Something you do kind of have to factor in a little bit. I'll go with Dallas first period puck line. It makes sense. Jump on Chicago early, potentially, in this game. And we know, as Alex probably will agree with, and of course he's still back home, Chicago's had a propensity to fall behind early in these games. So that's probably the way I would approach it, is maybe Stars first period puck line, if anything here. That's the only value you have. Arvid Soderblom is confirmed in net for Chicago. It should be Jake Ottinger here for Dallas. We'll see. Mason Marchment, by the way, he had to go to the hospital taking a puck to the face against Minnesota. Pete DeBoer says he'll be fine long term, but not a given that he's going to suit up tonight for the Dallas Stars here in this game. So we'll see if he's able to play. But like I said, I think Dallas does have a good, strong start. Hopefully that gives them the lead going into the first intermission. As far as props for this game, with Chicago, their offense is it's been up and down really, but Bertuzzi is playing with Bedard and Taylor Hall on the top line, and Tyler Bertuzzi is starting to connect offensively. 3 goals in the last 3 games for him. I think certainly worth a look as far as props in this game. Alex has a bargain bin from this game, which I will mention later in the show. But Bertuzzi has definitely started to show signs of heating up a little bit. Donato, who we've talked about as well. Those would be 2 I'd look at for Chicago. For the Dallas Stars, Evgeny Dodonov, I think, is worth a look. He's with Hinson Robertson, getting that top line chance. He scored one of their goals against Minnesota. 2 goals in the last 4 games for Evgeny Dodonov as well. I think that's worth a look too. Keep an eye on too. There's a guy that's been called up from the minors, and I believe if Marchment doesn't go, he might make his NHL debut here. Justin Rakovian going to get the opportunity in the lineup here for Dallas, and if he does, there you go. You can bet. If you're interested, bet the guy to score a goal in his first NHL game. You could go in that direction. But again, he's probably only going to play if Marchment's a no-go for Dallas. So keep an eye on that. All right, next up, final game of this Sunday slate. It is Philadelphia Flyers, Los Angeles Kings. We've got the Kings -145, home favorites, 5.5 the total in this one. You got the Kings coming off a big-time win against the Edmonton Oilers. It was a great hockey game, emotional game, physical. Really enjoyed watching that game. And like I said, I thought I was going into that game saying, I'm sick of seeing these teams in the playoffs. And I see, wow, it's a pretty good hockey game these teams just played. Maybe I do want to see them play each other in the playoffs again. But it was a solid game all around. Flyers with a nice win against the Anaheim Ducks 3-1. Samuel Larsson in particular needed a pretty solid game to kind of right the ship a little bit. And it was certainly better from his standpoint. In between the pipes. We'll see how this one plays out. Great stats from Rich H. And I know Jonathan Davis has mentioned a lot of that to me. How do teams do on the back-to-back? Philly has struggled on the back-to-back this season. 1-5. Kings 4-1 on the second of back-to-back. So definitely advantage Kings. I can't back Philly with Kolosov in net, and it's likely going to be him getting the start. 4-6. For Kolosov as a starting goalie for Philly, 3.33 goals against average, 878 save percentage. Those aren't the numbers I'm ready to trust him. By the way, it's interesting. If he gets the start, he was in net against Los Angeles 10 days ago, the game in Philadelphia, where the Kings ambushed Kolosov and the Flyers in the third period, turning a 3-3 game into a 7-3 LA win. And this would be Kolosov facing that same Kings team. So you can look at it 2 ways. You can look at it, well, he's looking for redemption. He's going to want to bear down, play so strong in this game. Or you could look at it and say, well, he gave up 7 to the Kings in that game. What's to stop him from struggling again here tonight against the LA Kings? So you can look at it from either way. I'm going to go with the LA team total here a little bit at over 3. At BetMGM, not over 3.5. I want the protection of the over 3 with the LA team total because of the fact that obviously, LA is one of those teams. They are not always lock, stock, and barrel, let's say that, to score 4 goals. So this is definitely one of those teams where I'd often rather have them in that, get the over 3 at -120 as opposed to the over 3.5 with the team total. So I think that's worth a look. I'm just waiting on Kolosov to be confirmed. David Riddick probably will be the starter in goal for the Kings because we saw Darcy Kemper yesterday in the game against Edmonton. So that's the way I'm approaching it, is that because I could see the Flyers getting shut down here a little bit by the Kings. And that's another thing about Riddick. Riddick's not that auto fade, that he's been at times in the past. He's been pretty steady for the Kings. You go back and you look, he had a bad night against San Jose, November 25th. Other than that, 1 goal, 2 goals, 2 goals, 3 goals, 2 goals allowed. He's been pretty steady for this LA Kings team in net. So not totally sold on Philadelphia having a boatload of offensive success here tonight in this game. So Kings team total over 3. Down to -120. I am interested in that a little bit. It is worth noting, though, Philly has won 2 straight times here in LA, and they did get their asses kicked by the LA Kings at home just recently. So I'm sure that's in the back of their minds, but I don't like the back-to-back numbers for Philly. They've struggled in this spot on a back-to-back all year. LA's been better in this spot. They are the better team right now as well. So I still think Kings team total. I like it enough to bet it. Again, not one of my stronger bets on the card, but I do like it a little bit, that Kings team total over 3 -120. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. Alex Turcotte, by the way, still value for him as long as he stays on the top line for LA for a goal prop. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Make sure you sign up. I mean, the new year is coming on Wednesday, and we're going to have Ice Guys exclusive live betcasts for Patreon members only, starting in January. So now's a great time to get on board. Patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. Goalie charts, totals charts, and of course our daily betting card, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the Patreon page. And again, your subscription goes a long way to supporting the show. It's just $10 per month. We're closing in on 200 paid Patreon members, and we appreciate it very much. So $10 per month, patreon.com/Ice Guys. And make sure you check out the Ice Guys store as well. Get your gear and your merch at iceguys.myspreadshop.com. All right, bargain bin special of the night and best bets coming up in just a moment, right after we hear from our great Ice Guys sponsors.
Support for the Ice Guys podcast is provided by Boston Hemp Incorporated, Manscaped, Power Play Sportsbook, Raise Your Game, Tailgater Social, and a big thank you to all that subscribe to the Ice Guys Patreon page. Everyone loves a perfect pair. Bacon and eggs. Thunder and lightning. Mario and Luigi. A hot dog with fries. Ian and Alex B. That's right. Everyone loves a perfect pair. So why not pair up your game nights with Boston Hemp? From exotic flower to concentrates and edible products. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better pairing than Boston Hemp and hockey. Check them out today at bostonhempinc.com. That's bostonhempinc.com. Boston Hemp Incorporated, the official smoke sponsor of the Ice Guys. Void where prohibited by law. Not available outside of the United States. Must be 21 or over to obtain products. Check your local regulations to see if Boston Hemp is available in your area.
Shout out to all our great Ice Guys sponsors, including Boston Hemp Inc. Make sure you check them out. 20% off all orders on the website using the promo code IceGuys at bostonhempinc.com. All right, bargain bin special of the night. This was a very tough choice today. Very tough choice. Lots of good candidates. Really good candidates as far as goal props are concerned. Mentioned a lot of them that I've already either bet or are going to bet. I mean, where do you start? Huberdeau. I mean, I'm not using Huberdeau, but Huberdeau was on the radar. Faber was on the radar. JG Pajot for the Islanders on the radar. Jake Evans for Montreal on the radar. I'm going to go with 2, though. Henrique for Edmonton. Arvidsson for Edmonton. I mean, there's a ton of great looks, in my opinion, for goal props, but I'm going to give you 2. I'm going to give you one from the Buffalo-St. Louis game and one from the Islanders-Pittsburgh game. Let's start with the Buffalo-St. Louis game. I'm going to go with Benson, and I like a lot of Sabres props here, but I'm going to go with Benson for Buffalo. I like what I'm seeing from him, and I like the price more than anybody. I like Jack Quinn as well, Dylan Cousins as well. You're getting pretty good props for those guys too in the bargain bin range, but you can get as high as plus 475, plus 470 with Zach Benson, who has scored in back-to-back games for the Buffalo Sabres. So Zach Benson for Buffalo, plus 470. And the other prop, this is a guy we expect to produce for the New York Islanders when he's healthy. And he finally got on the scoreboard last night. He's still a bargain bin price tonight this afternoon against Pittsburgh, plus 370. Anthony Duclair for the New York Islanders. So 2 bargain bins once again. Zach Benson for Buffalo, plus 470. Anthony Duclair, New York Islanders, plus 370. We'll go with those 2 here for bargain bin special of the night. And Alex's bargain bin special, how about this one? And you talk about a big price on this. Anton Vlasic, Alex Vlasic for the Chicago Blackhawks at plus 1,300. 13-1, Alex Vlasic for the Chicago Blackhawks. For Alex picking an Alex for the bargain bin special for the Blackhawks tonight against the Dallas Stars. All right, best bet. The best bets are starting to crank up again, which we like to see. For best bet for this card, I'm just trying to see what I'm going to rock with here. There's some good choices again. It's going to be one of these overs I like. The question is which one. Let's see here. Let's do Montreal Tampa. Let's do that one. Canadiens Lightning over 6.5 minus 120. I like that one. I like the Edmonton Anaheim over. I like the Buffalo St. Louis over. They're all good ones in my opinion, but I like this Montreal Tampa over. It's also been a strong series history, trending to the over between these 2 teams, Canadiens and Lightning. Canadiens shut out Florida yesterday. They're still a very, very green team on the blue line. I don't know if I trust them to have the defensive that entrenched defensive play 2 games in a row, especially a Tampa team that on home ice for a long period of time now has been scoring goals in bunches. You go and look at every recent Tampa game, especially at home, they've been able to score goals. So that's the one I'm going to roll with here. Montreal, Tampa Bay, over 6.5, minus 120. I like the first period over too. It's an over by Fecta game, but we'll go with the full game over here. 6.5, minus 120. Montreal, Tampa Bay for my best bet here for this Sunday NHL card. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button on the way out. Appreciate it very much. And again, tomorrow we're on at noon Eastern once again. It's actually going to be, I believe the final time will be on at noon Eastern on Monday. Starting the first Monday in January, we will be back to 2 p.m. Eastern on Mondays for the rest of the season. So, but one more time on a Monday at noon Eastern for the show tomorrow. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Tuesday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, noon Eastern. And if you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we'll be back with you tomorrow on Monday at noon Eastern for another edition of the Ice Guys.